gather around, young ones, for what I am about to share with you could one day save your very existence. My name is Vexel, and I serve as the chief historian of the Galactic Archives. This message I record is a warning to those who will come after us. You see, I witnessed firsthand the events that led to what we now call the calculator incident. Even speaking those words sends a wave of anxiety through my secondary heart. You may think I'm exaggerating, but believe me, I wish I were. When you've seen an entire galactic empire brought to its knees by a single human armed only with what they referred to as a basic calculator, you learn not to take such matters lightly. Before I recount the events, you must first understand just how far we believed we had advanced. For over 50,000 stellar cycles, the Galactic Council ruled over the known universe. We possessed quantum computers capable of calculating every particle's movement within an entire solar system. Our ships could bend space-time as easily as one bends a simple piece of fabric. Even our youngest children played with toys more advanced than the supercomputers of other civilizations. We were arrogant, truly arrogant. When we first detected the primitive radio signals from the humans, the Council's reaction was laughter. I recall sitting in the Grand Chamber, its crystalline walls stretching toward the three suns of Centa Prime, watching High Counselor Prate present their technology to the gathered representatives. "Look," she said, waving her tentacles with amusement, "they still rely on something called wireless fidelity for communication. How quaint." The Council's response? They decided to make first contact with the humans, out of pity. Yes, pity. They thought it would be a noble gesture to guide these primitive creatures into the galactic fold. After all, how dangerous could a species be when they hadn't even mastered basic neural networking or consciousness transfer? The memory of the day their ships first appeared at our border outpost still haunts me. Their vessels were crude, made of metal, powered by chemical propulsion. No antimatter engines, no quantum shielding, not even the simplest reality warping abilities. The Council's Science Division calculated their technology to be a staggering 10,000 years behind ours. But here's a lesson I've learned since that day. Never judge a species by the level of technology they possess. Judge them by what they do with it. The humans had a saying, one we could never grasp at the time: necessity is the mother of invention. We thought it was just another curious phrase from their primitive language. But now that saying chills me to the core. You see, while we spent millennia refining our technology, making it more elegant, more intricate, and more complex, the humans had been doing something entirely different. They had been learning to improvise, to adapt, and to overcome limitations using whatever tools they had available. Where we relied on quantum processors to calculate faster than light travel, they could manage it with a simple device that ran on batteries. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To fully understand the scope of what transpired, you need to know what came next. In their infinite wisdom, the Council decided to assign one human engineer to each of our primary technological hubs. Let them learn from us, they said. Let them see how advanced civilization operates. Security note: the following contains information about Engineer Mira-chan, now classified as Threat Level Omega by the new Galactic Council. Extreme caution is advised in handling this information. And that's how we encountered Mira-chan. Even now, I can still picture her standing there in the Council chamber, politely smiling, holding that seemingly innocent calculator device. No one, not a single one of our 184 member species, had the slightest inkling of what was to come. Oh, you want to know what happened next? Well, brace yourself. Let me tell you about the day everything we thought we understood about technological superiority came crashing down. But before I go on, you might want to sit down. This is not a tale for the faint of heart or the weak of constitution. Our first formal meeting with Mira-chan took place on what humans call a Monday. She arrived wearing what they call business casual, apparently considered professional attire on their world. In one hand, she held a bag stuffed with primitive data storage devices, and in the other, that calculator. That cursed calculator. "Hi there," she said, waving at the security checkpoint with far too much enthusiasm for someone meeting an advanced civilization. "I'm the new engineer from Earth. Hope I'm not late." The security officers, three Zixan warriors equipped with enhanced combat neural networks, exchanged confused looks. Their threat assessment systems were likely malfunctioning. How could they, after all, register such high danger readings from someone who seemed so utterly unthreatening? High Counselor Prate's reaction was priceless. All seven of her eyes blinked in unison, a clear sign of utter confusion in her species. "You're the engineer?" she asked, her universal translator struggling to maintain a diplomatic tone. "But you're so analog?" Mira just smiled wider. "Yep, that's me. Got my trusty TI-84 and everything." She raised the calculator as though it were a badge of honor. Looking back, I should have noticed the strange flicker on the device's display when she pressed a few buttons. But like everyone else, I was too busy laughing laughing at her apparent simplicity to catch on. The Council's chief technology officer, Grand Engineer Zelix 9, actually laughed out loud. All three of his mouth parts clicked together in that distinctive way that showed both amusement and disdain. "My dear human," he said, "we have quantum computers capable of calculating the trajectory of every particle in your solar system. What possible use could that primitive device serve here?" "Oh, you'd be surprised," Mira replied, still grinning. "Sometimes the simple solutions are the best ones. Naturally, we assigned her to the lowest level of our engineering hierarchy. We gave her basic maintenance tasks, things even our cleaning drones could handle. It was a diplomatic gesture, of course. Let the primitive human feel important while we carried on with our far more pressing work." The first real indication that something was different about Mira came during her orientation tour. Grand Engineer Zelix 9 was showing her our central processing core, a quantum computer the size of a small moon, when she asked a question that none of us expected. "But have you guys ever considered using Excel?" The universal translators actually crashed trying to process the absurdity of that query. When we finally managed to get the universal translators working again, Zelix 9 spent 20 minutes painstakingly explaining why their so-called primitive spreadsheet software couldn't possibly compare to our quantum systems. Mira simply nodded, pressed a few buttons on her calculator, and said, sure, just thinking out loud. We placed her in the lowest basement level, next to the waste recycling units, as if that were a grand gesture. She thanked us profusely, as though we had given her the finest suite in the galaxy. When we restricted her access to only the most basic systems, she acted almost humbly grateful for the chance. "Don't worry about giving me anything too advanced," she said as she set up her workstation with those primitive devices. "I'll figure things out as I go along." If only we had known what figuring things out meant to a human engineer. Personal note asterisk, I still wake up some nights, remembering how she smiled every time we patronized her. It wasn't the smile of someone simply being polite, it was the smile of someone who knew something we didn't. Thus began what we thought would be a simple cultural exchange program. Little did we know, we were witnessing the beginning of the greatest technological upheaval in galactic history. Let me introduce you to Castor, the unfortunate soul assigned as Mira Chen's direct supervisor. Picture, if you will, a being whose entire career was built on following procedures down to the smallest detail. For arms, each clutching a different data pad, constantly monitoring system protocols. He seemed the perfect choice to oversee our human guest, or so we thought. "Listen carefully, human engineer," Castor said on Myra's first real day of work, his voice dripping with the kind of condescension usually reserved for malfunctioning cleaning bots. "Your task is simple. Monitor the waste recycling systems and report any anomalies. Think you can handle that?" Mira nodded and tapped away at her calculator. "Got it. Watch the pipes, report the weird stuff. Should be fun." Vank T, a senior officer, twitched his facial ridges in irritation. "This is serious work. The entire station's waste management depends on proper monitoring." "Oh, of course," Mira agreed, looking appropriately chastised. "Super serious. But quick question. Why do you route the quantum fluid cooling system through the same channels as the basic water recycling?" Castor blinked, all three sets of eyelids fluttering in confusion. "We don't. That would be..." He checked his data pads frantically. "That's impossible. The systems are completely separate." "Really?" Mira held up her calculator and pointed to some basic arithmetic. "Because if you look at the flow rates and cross-reference them with the maintenance schedules, the first incident occurred exactly 3 hours later. Somehow, the waste recycling system began operating 300% more efficiently than before." Castor was livid, convinced Mira had broken something. But when the maintenance crews investigated, they found the systems functioning perfectly, just not in any way they could explain. "I just carried the two," Mira explained with a nonchalant wave of her calculator. "You know, basic math." The second incident took place 2 days later. Castor assigned Mira to dust the backup processors, literally, dust them with a cleaning cloth. By the end of her shift, the processing speed had doubled. "What did you do?" Castor demanded, all four arms flailing at the performance readings. "Oh no, did I mess something up?" Mira asked, feigning concern. "I was just following the manual." She held up her calculator, where she had apparently stored the maintenance protocols. "See, right here, between the cosine function and the square root button?" Castor filed 17 complaints that week, each one claiming the human engineer was clearly incompetent and a potential threat. Yet every investigation concluded the same thing. The systems were running more efficiently than ever, though nobody could explain why. Then came the day of the great sewage backup. Alarms screamed throughout the station. Castor went into a panic, all four of his data pads flashing red warnings. "What did you do?" he yelled at Mira, who was calmly pressing buttons on her calculator. "Me? I was just carrying out routine maintenance," Mira replied, showing him her screen. screen. Look, according to these calculations, if we reverse the polarity of the neutron flow, that's not even a real thing, Castor interrupted, shaking with frustration. You can't reverse the polarity of neutron flow. It's physically impossible. 5 minutes later, the sewage system was not only fixed but somehow gained the ability to recycle waste into pure energy. The station's power output tripled overnight. Must have been a coincidence, Mira suggested, casually pocketing her calculator. Good thing it sorted itself out, Castor muttered, twitching every time he saw her after that. From that moment, his complaints became more desperate. She's doing everything wrong, he insisted to the council. She's violating every protocol and somehow, it's working better. The council, in their infinite wisdom, decided to promote Castor to a different department. Clearly, the stress of supervising our primitive guest is affecting your performance, they told him. We'll assign someone more patient. That's when they brought in senior engineer Nixus. Now, Nixus was the one who should have caught on. She should have, but didn't. None of us did. We were all too busy laughing at Myra's so-called bumbling mistakes to recognize the pattern. Security note asterisk subsequent investigations revealed that 47% of Castor's complaints were automatically redirected to a spam folder by what appeared to be a simple calculator macro. Don't worry, Mira said to her new supervisor, that same innocent smile on her face. I'm sure we'll work great together. I've got some interesting ideas about improving the quantum communication arrays. Just need to run a few calculations first. Looking back, the pattern seems so glaring, it hurts. But as the humans say, hindsight is 20/20ths. And they have a lot of phrases like that, all too fitting when reflecting on monumental failures. Senior engineer Nixus was the first to notice something odd. Unlike Castor's frantic rants, Nixus approached things more analytically. She started keeping a log of Myra's accidents. Day 37 asterisk Mira trips and spills coffee on the two mainframe systems. Processing speed increases by 700%. Day 42 asterisk the calculator falls into the artificial gravity generator. Station now requires 90% less power to maintain the gravitational field. Day 45 asterisk Mira accidentally connects her laptop to the wrong port. The ship's navigation system now plots courses in half the time with double the accuracy. There's no way these are coincidences, Nixus reported to the council, but I've watched her work. She really does seem to be just bumbling around. High Counselor Prate dismissed the concerns. Look at her. She still uses physical buttons to input commands. How dangerous could she be? Meanwhile, Mira continued her work with that same cheerful clumsiness. She'd walk into rooms, apologizing for being late, blaming her primitive, timekeeping device, and then somehow, without fail, optimize every system she touched while trying to check the time. The maintenance logs began to get increasingly bizarre. Attempted to fix coffee maker. Accidentally improved faster-than-light drive efficiency by 200%. Dropped calculator into weapon system during routine cleaning. Defense grid now predicts enemy movements before they happen. Tried to connect printer to network. Somehow merged all communication systems into a single quantum-entangled network that operates at faster-than-light speed. Council member XRA was the next to raise concerns. Has anyone actually checked what she's typing into that calculator? They asked during an emergency session. Of course, Grand Engineer Zelix 9 assured everyone. It's just basic arithmetic. Look, I'll show you the surveillance footage. The footage showed Mira pressing the buttons. 88,135, 8,143. See, Zelix 9 said triumphantly. Simple addition. That's when junior analyst Rex, fresh out of the academy, spoke up. Sir, when you turn that upside down, it spells. The entire council rushed to look at their own calculators. 5 of them fainted. But the true turning point came during what we now call the coffee machine incident. Mira had been complaining about the quality of our synthetic beverage dispensers. She insisted they couldn't make a proper cup of joe. We humored her request and let her take a look at the system. 3 days later, every beverage dispenser on the station was producing drinks that even our most sophisticated pleasure simulation programs couldn't match. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was that the dispensers had somehow gained access to the station's quantum networks. Oh gosh, did I cross some wires? Mira asked, looking genuinely distressed. I was just trying to calculate the optimal water temperature. When the tech team investigated, they discovered snippets of code written in something called BASIC integrated into our quantum systems, not just in the beverage dispensers but everywhere. Every system Mira had touched now contained traces of what she called simple programming shortcuts. That's when Council member Texas L made a startling connection. Wait a minute, they said during an emergency session. Didn't her personnel file say she specialized in something called reverse engineering on on Earth? The council chamber fell silent. What exactly, Prate asked slowly, is reverse engineering? Before anyone could answer, the station's AI announced, "System upgrade complete. New operating system installed. Thank you for choosing Humano 2. Myra's voice echoed over the intercom. Oops, sorry about that, everyone. I was just trying to fix the notification system. Did anyone else notice it was running a bit slow? The council, at long last, called an emergency meeting, their first in 300 years. They gathered in their secure chamber, confident that their quantum-encrypted communications were impervious to primitive human technology. That's when they realized every calculator on the station had somehow turned into a quantum terminal. Security note asterisk later analysis confirmed that Mira had been using the display of her calculator as a quantum programming interface all along. The numbers weren't mere calculations. They were code. Maybe, suggested one brave council member, we should ask her what else she's planning to accidentally improve? The answer came sooner than anyone anticipated, and as with everything else in this unfolding disaster, it arrived through a series of seemingly random incidents that ended up resulting in the total transformation of galactic technology. The day everything either fell apart or came together, depending on your perspective, began like any other. Prate was addressing the council about the latest series of accidents when every screen in the chamber suddenly displayed the same message: integration complete. Thanks for being such good sports. Asterisk asterisk Myra's voice came over the communication system, something that shouldn't have been possible in the secure chamber. Hey everyone, good news. I finally fixed all those inefficiencies in your systems. Bad news? You might want to sit down for this next part. At that moment, every calculator on the station flashed the same message. Warning, your trial period has expired. Please purchase Humano Pro to continue using advanced features. Asterisk asterisk Prate's tentacles went pale. What advanced features? Oh, Mira replied cheerfully, just the basics. Faster than light travel, artificial gravity, quantum computing, those kinds of things. Don't worry though. I left life support on the free version. The council exploded into chaos. Grand Engineer Zelix 9 scrambled to override the systems but found himself locked out by a forgotten password challenge, asking for his mother's maiden name. This is impossible, he shouted, all three of his mouth parts quivering in disbelief. How did she do this with a primitive calculating device? That's when Mira strolled into the chamber, still holding her trusty calculator. Actually, funny story about that, she said with a grin. Remember all those times you guys laughed at my primitive technology? Well, turns out there's something to be said for keeping things simple. She pressed a button on her calculator, and suddenly every quantum screen in the chamber displayed lines of code. Beautiful, elegant, and terrifyingly simple code. See, she smiled, while you were building bigger and more complex systems, we humans learn to do more with less. When you have limited resources, you get creative. And when you understand the basics really, really well, you can make them do almost anything, but the quantum encryption? Prate sputtered. The neural firewalls, the reality warping security measures, Mira explained, showing her calculator screen. Once you understand the math, the rest is just details. And humans were really good at details. She pressed another button. Throughout the station, systems began optimizing themselves in ways our best engineers had never even considered. You rebuilt our entire infrastructure, Nixus said, finally understanding. All those accidents were mostly accidents, Mira admitted. Actually, I really am kind of clumsy, but when you understand systems from the ground up, even accidents can be educational. By the way, you might notice your quantum processors running a bit faster now. Turns out they work better when you don't overcomplicate things. The council watched in horror as their technology, the pride of 50,000 years of development, was essentially reprogrammed by what they now realized were testing protocols disguised as mathematical errors. Don't worry, Mira assured them, still smiling. I left detailed documentation written in BASIC, of course. Figured you should start with the fundamentals. So there you have it, the story of how a single human engineer with a basic calculator reshaped our entire civilization. But before you close this record, let me share some final thoughts and warnings. First, if you ever meet a human who says, I have a simple solution, run. Run fast. Run fast, because their definition of simple usually means about to change everything you think you know about reality. Second, never, under any circumstances, laugh at human technology. Sure, that communication device might look primitive with its touchscreen and apps, but for all you know, it's probably capable of reformatting the fabric of space-time. They call their devices smartphones. Think about that. They made their phones smart. What does that tell you about their capabilities these days? The calculator incident is now required study at every engineering academy in the galaxy. There's even a statue of Mira-chun in the council chambers. Well, technically, it's a statue of her calculator. No one could agree on what she actually looked like, because because we were all too busy watching her accidental improvements to take a proper photo. The official human integration guidelines now consist of a single page with 3 rules. 1. If a human offers to take a look at your technology, assume everything you know is about to change. 2. If a human says, oops, brace for a revolutionary breakthrough. 3. Never ask a human engineer, why can't we? Because they'll show you exactly why you can. Oh, and that calculator, the original one Mira used, it's now the most heavily guarded artifact in the Galactic Museum. Not because it's dangerous, but because it keeps mysteriously improving the security systems protecting it. Personal edition * last week. A human child visited the museum and asked why we're using such complicated security measures. I've submitted my resignation, effective immediately. Remember this story, young ones. Remember it well, because somewhere out there right now, a human is looking at some piece of advanced technology and thinking, there's probably a simpler way to do this, and may the great cosmic calculator have mercy on us all. End of historical record 2784b. Final warning *. If you hear a human say, watch this, your civilization will never be the same. Transmission complete. Note *. This document has been automatically optimized for clarity by Humanos 2.0. Prate, trying to maintain some dignity, drew herself up to her full height. And what do you want in exchange for returning control of our systems? Return control? Oh no, you misunderstand, Mira said, smiling. I didn't take control, I gave it back to you. Check your systems. They're running better than ever, and now you actually understand how they work. Well, you will once you finish the tutorial I included. Lots of practice exercises. She held up her calculator one last time. Sometimes, the best technology isn't the most advanced. It's the most understood. Now, who wants to learn how to program a quantum computer using nothing but a calculator and some clever thinking? The silence in the chamber was broken only by the soft beeping of calculators throughout the station, each one displaying the same message. Lesson 1. Why simple solutions are often the best solutions. A Human's Guide to Galactic Engineering. Security note *. The resulting technological revolution became known as the Great Simplification. The day when the galaxy's most advanced civilization learned they'd been doing it wrong for millennia. The changes that swept through galactic society after the calculator incident were both subtle and profound. First came the panic, of course. Several council members tried to have their consciousness uploaded to the quantum network to escape the situation, only to find themselves trapped in what Mira had labeled the basic tutorial level. You'll get full access back once you complete the course, she promised. Don't worry, I made it fun. There are even achievements to unlock. The galactic news networks had a field day. Breaking, entire galactic council stuck in tutorial mode. Human engineer revolutionizes space travel with one weird trick. Top 10 things you didn't know your calculator could do. Number 7 will terrify you, but the real shock came during the investigation into Myra's background. Turns out, she wasn't just any engineer. She was considered somewhat average by human standards. The council's collective nervous breakdown upon learning this fact is now studied in medical schools across the galaxy. You mean there are more of you? Prate asked during the formal inquiry, her tentacles twitching uncontrollably. Oh sure, Mira replied, still typing on her calculator. Most of them probably would have done this much faster. I was being kind of slow to be polite, though most of them probably would have done this much faster. I was being kind of slow to be polite. That's when we discovered her actual mission. She hadn't been sent to learn from us at all. She'd been sent to prepare us. Look, she explained to the shell-shocked council, humans are coming to join the galactic community, whether you're ready or not. We figured you'd prefer a gentle introduction rather than having 1,000 of us show up and start optimizing things without warning. The council's response was to create an entirely new department, Human Containment and Understanding. Its first action was to recommend surrendering completely to human engineering expertise. But here's the real kicker, the part that still keeps me up at night. Remember all those accidents that improved our systems? Turns out they were carefully calculated to fail in exactly the right ways. Each mistake was a lesson, teaching our systems to think more like humans, to improvise, adapt, and overcome. Think of it like teaching a child, Mira explained during her exit interview. You don't start them with quantum mechanics. You start with basic arithmetic. Speaking of which, your quantum computers should be finishing kindergarten about now. The political fallout was intense. Several council members resigned in shame. Others demanded to be enrolled in human engineering courses. Prate herself was found late one night in her office, sobbing sobbing over a basic calculator, trying to understand how it all went so wrong. But the most profound change was in how we viewed technology. Gone were the days of blindly adding complexity for complexity's sake. Humans taught us something we'd forgotten over our 50,000 years of advancement. Sometimes, the simplest solution is the best solution. They call it the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. We tried to have that phrase banned from official documents, but somehow it keeps reappearing in our systems, usually followed by a smiley face. Personal note asterisk, I still keep one of those primitive calculators on my desk. Not to use it, just to remind me every now and then. I swear, I see it blink at me.